English is a language that many people hear every day, even when they are not trying to learn it. It is present in movies, music, news, offices, phones, and daily conversations around the world. Listening to English regularly helps the mind become familiar with the sounds, rhythm, and flow of the language. This familiarity makes understanding easier over time, even without active effort. When people listen to English calmly, without pressure, the brain starts recognizing patterns naturally. Words begin to sound familiar, sentences feel less strange, and meaning becomes clearer. Learning does not always require concentration or memorization. Sometimes simple exposure is enough to create comfort with a language. English does not need to be fast, complex, or perfect to be useful. In daily life, most English conversations are simple and clear. People usually speak in short sentences, use common words, and focus on meaning rather than grammar rules. Understanding this helps listeners relax and feel more comfortable while listening. Listening is one of the easiest ways to become familiar with English. Even when someone is resting, the brain continues to process sounds. Soft and clear English narration allows the mind to stay relaxed while still absorbing language naturally. This gentle exposure helps reduce fear and hesitation related to English. In everyday situations, English is used in a very practical way. People greet each other, share information, ask for help, and express simple ideas. These everyday uses of English are predictable and easy to recognize after repeated listening. The more familiar these patterns become, the more comfortable English feels. Spoken English often sounds different from written English. In speech, people connect words, shorten phrases, and use natural rhythm. Listening regularly helps the ear adjust to this natural flow. Over time, spoken English becomes easier to follow, even when sentences are spoken at a normal speed. Many learners believe that English must be learned through rules and explanations. While grammar is useful, listening creates a strong foundation. When the brain hears correct English repeatedly, it starts recognizing what sounds right. This natural understanding develops without effort. Daily English is not about advanced vocabulary, it is about clear communication. Simple words are used again and again in different situations. Listening helps the brain store these words naturally. Over time, these words feel familiar and easy to understand. Comfort with English grows slowly. It does not appear suddenly. Regular listening allows the mind to stay calm while becoming familiar with the language. There is no need to analyze every word. Understanding improves gradually through exposure. English has a rhythm that becomes soothing when heard regularly. Soft narration allows the listener to stay relaxed while becoming familiar with the language. This relaxed state helps the brain accept new sounds without resistance. In real conversations, people focus on meaning rather than perfection. Mistakes are common and accepted. Listening to natural English helps learners realize that clarity matters more than accuracy. This understanding reduces fear and hesitation. The mind learns patterns quietly. It notices how sentences begin, how ideas connect, and how thoughts are completed. These patterns become familiar through listening, even without conscious effort. English sentences often follow a simple structure. The subject comes first, followed by an action, and then additional information. Hearing this structure repeatedly helps the brain recognize it automatically. When listening is calm and steady, the brain stays open to learning. Stress and pressure block understanding. Relaxed listening allows the mind to accept English naturally. Many people understand more English than they realize. Listening regularly reveals this hidden understanding. familiar words and phrases begin to stand out, meaning becomes clearer with time. English is not a performance, it is a tool for communication. Listening helps learners see English as something practical and useful, not something to fear. In everyday speech, tone and context play an important role. Listening helps the brain recognize emotions, intention, and meaning beyond words. This understanding improves communication naturally. The human brain is designed to learn languages through listening. Children learn their first language by hearing it repeatedly. Adults can also benefit from this natural process. Listening without pressure allows the brain to relax. This relaxed state supports learning. English becomes a background presence rather than a challenge. Words sound clearer when the mind is calm. Soft narration creates a safe environment for learning. There is no need to focus or respond. Simply listening is enough. English pronunciation becomes easier to recognize through repeated exposure. The brain starts identifying familiar sounds and combinations. This recognition supports understanding. Many English sentences follow predictable patterns. Listening helps the brain recognize these patterns naturally. Over time, sentences feel familiar and easy to process. Learning through listening is a slow but powerful method. It builds comfort first, then understanding. Confidence develops naturally from familiarity. English is used differently in various situations, but the foundation remains the same. Listening regularly helps the brain adapt to these variations. Soft and steady narration allows the listener to stay relaxed. This relaxation helps the brain stay open to new information. Understanding does not require effort, it develops naturally through exposure. Listening creates familiarity, and familiarity creates comfort. English learning becomes easier when the mind is not stressed. Calm listening removes pressure and allows natural absorption. The goal of listening is not to remember every word, it is to become familiar with the language as a whole. This familiarity supports future understanding and use. Over time, English begins to sound normal. Words and phrases feel less foreign. This sense of normalcy is an important step in learning. Listening regularly helps reduce hesitation. Familiar sounds create confidence, even without active practice. English becomes easier when it feels familiar. Listening creates this familiarity naturally. Soft narration supports rest while allowing language exposure. The mind continues to learn even during relaxation. This gentle approach allows English to become part of the listener's environment. There is no pressure to perform or understand everything. Comfort with English grows quietly. It develops through repeated exposure and calm listening. The mind accepts language best when it feels safe and relaxed. Soft English narration provides this environment. Learning through listening is a natural process. It supports understanding without effort. English does not need to be forced. It becomes easier when allowed to flow naturally. This calm listening experience helps the brain become familiar with English sounds, patterns, and rhythm. Over time, understanding improves naturally. English feels less distant and more accessible. This gentle exposure creates a strong foundation for further learning. The mind continues to absorb language quietly even during rest. English becomes familiar through calm and steady listening.
Spoken English has its own natural style that is different from written language. In daily conversations, people do not speak in long or perfect sentences. They focus on sharing meaning quickly and clearly. Understanding this helps listeners feel more relaxed while listening to English. When people speak English, they often join words together. Sounds flow smoothly from one word to the next. This connected speech can sound confusing at first, but regular listening helps the ear adjust. Over time, these sound connections begin to feel familiar. In natural English, speakers often shorten words and phrases. This happens because conversation moves quickly and smoothly. Listening regularly allows the brain to recognize these shortened forms without effort. Context plays a major role in spoken English. People understand meaning not only from words, but also from the situation. Listening to English in a calm way helps the mind recognize context naturally. Spoken English relies heavily on common phrases. These phrases appear again and again in daily life. Hearing them in different situations helps listeners understand their meaning without needing explanations. Tone of voice is important in spoken English. The same words can sound different depending on how they are said. Listening helps the brain understand emotion and intention through tone. In conversations, speakers often pause, slow down, or change rhythm. These natural pauses help listeners follow the message. Calm listening makes it easier to recognize these patterns. Many learners try to understand every single word they hear. This creates pressure and confusion. Spoken English does not require full understanding of each word. Meaning often becomes clear through the overall sentence. Listening regularly teaches the brain to focus on important words. Less important words fade into the background. This natural filtering improves comprehension. Spoken English is full of everyday expressions. These expressions may not match textbook language, but they are widely used. Listening helps the mind recognize them naturally. People often repeat ideas in different ways during conversation. This helps listeners understand the message. Regular listening makes it easier to follow these variations. The speed of spoken English can feel fast, but the structure remains simple. Listening calmly helps the brain adjust to speed without stress. Understanding spoken English improves when the listener stops translating. Translation slows down comprehension. Listening allows meaning to appear naturally. Spoken English often uses short responses and simple confirmations. These small phrases help conversations move smoothly. Familiarity with them grows through listening. In real life, speakers do not speak perfectly. They pause, correct themselves, and change direction. Listening helps learners accept this natural imperfection. The brain learns spoken language by exposure. Each listening session adds familiarity. Over time, understanding improves without conscious effort. English conversations usually follow predictable patterns. Greetings, explanations, and responses often follow similar structures. Listening helps the brain recognize these patterns. Spoken English is flexible. The same idea can be expressed in many ways. Listening helps learners understand meaning beyond exact wording. Many English sounds are softer in speech than in writing. Listening helps the ear adjust to these sound changes. Understanding improves when the listener stays relaxed. Stress blocks comprehension. Calm listening supports natural learning. Spoken English includes rhythm and stress. Certain words receive more emphasis. Listening helps the brain recognize which words matter most. The brain naturally adapts to repeated sounds. English becomes easier to understand as sounds become familiar. Listening without pressure allows the mind to stay open. There is no need to analyze or memorize. Familiarity develops naturally. Spoken English often uses linking words to connect ideas. Listening helps learners follow the flow of conversation. In daily speech, people simplify language. They avoid complex structures. Listening reveals this simplicity. Understanding spoken English does not require perfect grammar knowledge. Listening builds intuition for correct usage. The brain stores language patterns quietly. These patterns become available when needed. Listening to spoken English helps learners understand how ideas are organized in conversation. English speakers often adjust their speech depending on the situation. Listening helps recognize these adjustments. Over time, spoken English begins to sound normal. This familiarity reduces hesitation and fear. Listening allows learners to notice how sentences end and how ideas are completed. Spoken English often includes polite phrases and soft expressions. Listening helps recognize social language. The brain becomes better at predicting meaning through listening. This improves understanding even when words are unclear. Listening regularly helps learners stay calm when hearing English. Spoken English is practical and efficient. Listening reveals how people communicate in real life. The mind learns language best when relaxed. Calm listening supports this process. English conversations rely heavily on shared understanding. Listening helps build this understanding. Over time, spoken English feels less overwhelming. Familiar sounds create confidence. Listening allows learners to absorb pronunciation naturally. Spoken English becomes easier when the listener accepts natural variation. The brain adapts to speech patterns through repeated exposure. Listening helps learners follow conversations without effort. English understanding improves quietly through regular listening. Spoken language becomes familiar through calm exposure. The mind recognizes patterns without conscious analysis. Listening creates a strong base for communication. Spoken English is learned naturally through exposure. Regular listening builds comfort and understanding. English sounds become familiar through repetition in daily life. Listening supports natural comprehension development. The brain continues to adapt with each listening session. Spoken English becomes easier to follow over time. Listening allows meaning to appear naturally. Comfort grows with familiarity. Understanding improves through calm listening. Spoken English feels more accessible with exposure. The mind accepts language when relaxed. Listening creates natural understanding. English comprehension develops quietly. Spoken language becomes familiar. Understanding improves gradually. Listening supports learning naturally. English feels easier through exposure. The mind stays open while listening. Spoken English becomes comfortable. Understanding grows steadily. Listening builds familiarity. English comprehension improves. Spoken English becomes natural. Listening allows learning without effort. English understanding deepens. The brain adapts naturally. Spoken English becomes clear. Listening supports comfort. English learning continues quietly.
Vocabulary is one of the most important parts of learning English. Words are the building blocks of communication. Every sentence, conversation, and idea depends on vocabulary. Listening helps the brain become familiar with words in a natural and relaxed way. In daily life, English vocabulary is usually simple and practical. People use common words again and again to describe actions, feelings, places, and situations. Listening regularly helps these words become familiar without conscious effort. Vocabulary learning does not always happen through memorization. When words are heard in context, the brain understands their meaning naturally. This type of learning feels easy and comfortable. Many English words are short and commonly used. Words related to time, place, movement, and daily activities appear frequently in speech. Listening allows the mind to recognize these words quickly. Words often carry meaning based on how they are used in a sentence. Listening helps the brain understand this usage. Over time, words feel natural rather than confusing. In spoken English, vocabulary is often flexible. The same word can be used in different situations with slightly different meanings. Listening helps learners notice these variations naturally. Daily English uses a limited set of words more often than advanced vocabulary. Listening helps learners focus on these useful words instead of rare ones. Vocabulary grows quietly through exposure. Each listening session adds new familiarity. The brain stores words without pressure. Many English words sound similar. Listening helps the ear distinguish between these sounds. This improves understanding. Listening also helps with pronunciation. Hearing words spoken clearly allows the brain to recognize correct sounds. Vocabulary becomes stronger when words are heard repeatedly in different sentences. Even without repetition in the script, exposure over time creates familiarity. In real conversations, people choose words that are easy to understand. Listening reveals how simple vocabulary is enough for clear communication. English vocabulary includes many words borrowed from other languages. Listening helps learners recognize familiar sounds and meanings. Words related to daily routines appear often in spoken English. Listening helps the brain connect these words to real-life actions. Vocabulary learning improves when the mind is relaxed. Calm listening allows words to enter memory naturally. English speakers often use descriptive words to explain simple ideas. Listening helps learners understand how description works in English. Some words change meaning slightly depending on context. Listening helps learners understand this flexibility. Vocabulary becomes easier when learners stop focusing on memorization. Listening allows words to feel natural. In spoken English, people avoid complicated vocabulary. Listening helps learners focus on clarity rather than complexity. Words related to emotions, actions, and situations are commonly used. Listening helps learners recognize these categories naturally. Vocabulary learning through listening feels effortless. The brain absorbs words while staying relaxed. English vocabulary includes many short expressions and phrases. Listening helps learners understand these naturally. Words become familiar when heard repeatedly across different topics. Listening creates this exposure. The brain recognizes words faster when they are heard often. Listening improves this recognition. Vocabulary grows best when learning feels safe and calm. Listening creates this environment. In daily speech, people explain ideas using simple words. Listening reveals how communication works in real life. English vocabulary supports understanding even when grammar is not perfect. Listening helps learners focus on meaning. Words related to everyday objects, places, and activities appear often in spoken English. Listening helps learners build this core vocabulary. Vocabulary learning does not need effort. Calm listening allows words to settle naturally. Listening also improves spelling awareness indirectly. Hearing words helps the brain recognize their structure. English vocabulary becomes familiar through natural exposure. Listening supports this process. Words often appear in predictable patterns. Listening helps learners notice these patterns. Vocabulary understanding improves when learners focus on overall meaning. Listening supports this understanding. In spoken English, vocabulary is practical and functional. Listening reveals this simplicity. Vocabulary grows with time and exposure. Listening supports steady progress. Words feel less foreign when heard regularly. Listening creates comfort. English vocabulary becomes easier through familiarity.
Listening builds this familiarity. The brain stores vocabulary quietly. Listening supports this storage. Words related to common actions appear frequently. Listening helps learners recognize them quickly. Vocabulary learning improves when the mind stays relaxed. Calm listening allows words to enter memory naturally. English speakers often use descriptive words to explain simple ideas. Listening helps learners understand how description works in English. Some words change meaning slightly depending on context. Listening helps learners understand this flexibility. Vocabulary becomes easier when learners stop focusing on memorization. Listening allows words to feel natural. In spoken English, people avoid complicated vocabulary. Listening helps learners focus on clarity rather than complexity. Words related to emotions, actions, and situations are commonly used. Listening helps learners recognize these categories naturally. Vocabulary learning through listening feels effortless. The brain absorbs words while staying relaxed. English vocabulary includes many short expressions and phrases. Listening helps learners understand these naturally. Words become familiar when heard repeatedly across different topics. Listening creates this exposure. The brain recognizes words faster when they are heard often. Listening improves this recognition. Vocabulary grows best when learning feels safe and calm. Listening creates this environment. In daily speech, people explain ideas using simple words. Listening reveals how communication works in real life. English vocabulary supports understanding even when grammar is not perfect. Listening helps learners focus on meaning. Words related to everyday objects, places, and activities appear often in spoken English. Listening helps learners build this core vocabulary. Vocabulary learning does not need effort. Calm listening allows words to settle naturally. Listening also improves spelling awareness indirectly. Hearing words helps the brain recognize their structure. English vocabulary becomes familiar through natural exposure. Listening supports this process. Words often appear in predictable patterns. Listening helps learners notice these patterns. Vocabulary understanding improves when learners focus on overall meaning. Listening supports this understanding. In spoken English, vocabulary is practical and functional. Listening reveals this simplicity. Vocabulary grows with time and exposure. Listening supports steady progress. Words feel less foreign when heard regularly. Listening creates comfort. English vocabulary becomes easier through familiarity. Listening builds this familiarity. The brain stores vocabulary quietly. Listening supports this storage. Words related to common actions appear frequently. Listening helps learners recognize them quickly. Vocabulary learning improves when the mind stays relaxed. Calm listening allows words to enter memory naturally. English speakers often use descriptive words to explain simple ideas. Listening helps learners understand how description works in English. Some words change meaning slightly depending on context. Listening helps learners understand this flexibility. Vocabulary becomes easier when learners stop focusing on memorization. Listening allows words to feel natural. In spoken English, people avoid complicated vocabulary. Listening helps learners focus on clarity rather than complexity. Words related to emotions, actions, and situations are commonly used. Listening helps learners recognize these categories naturally. Vocabulary learning through listening feels effortless. The brain absorbs words while staying relaxed. English vocabulary includes many short.
Speaking English clearly is more important than speaking English perfectly. In real life, people focus on understanding each other, not on grammar accuracy. Clear speech helps communication flow smoothly and reduces confusion. Simple English is powerful. Short sentences are easier to understand and easier to speak. Daily conversations usually involve basic sentence structures that express one idea at a time. Listening to simple spoken English helps learners understand how clarity works in real communication. When people speak English naturally, they choose words that feel comfortable. They avoid complicated vocabulary unless it is necessary. This makes conversation easier for both speakers and listeners. Clear speaking starts with organizing thoughts. In English, speakers usually present ideas in a straightforward order. The main idea comes first, followed by additional details. Listening helps learners recognize this pattern. In spoken English, pauses are natural. Speakers pause to think, breathe, or emphasize meaning. These pauses help listeners follow the message. Calm listening allows learners to understand the role of pauses in speech. Speaking does not require long sentences. Many ideas can be shared using short phrases. Listening to daily English reveals how often people rely on brief expressions to communicate. Pronunciation becomes clearer through exposure. Hearing English spoken clearly helps learners recognize correct sounds and word stress. This recognition supports clearer speech. People often adjust their speaking speed based on the situation. Slow speech improves clarity, especially in important conversations. Listening helps learners understand when slower speech is appropriate. In daily life, English speakers use common sentence patterns repeatedly. These patterns help communication stay predictable and easy to follow. Listening builds familiarity with these patterns. Clear English focuses on meaning rather than style. Speakers choose words that match the situation. Listening helps learners recognize this practical approach. Speaking confidently does not mean speaking loudly. Calm and steady speech improves clarity. Listening to calm narration supports this understanding. Many English sentences begin with a subject followed by an action. This simple structure makes speech easy to follow. Listening helps learners absorb this structure naturally. In conversation, speakers often use connecting words to link ideas. These words guide the listener through the message. Listening helps learners recognize these connections. Clear speech avoids unnecessary detail. Speakers share only what is needed. Listening reveals how simplicity improves understanding. In English, pronunciation includes stress on certain words. These stressed words carry important meaning. Listening helps learners notice where emphasis occurs. Speaking English becomes easier when learners focus on being understood rather than being perfect. Listening reinforces this mindset. In daily conversations, people repeat ideas using different wording to ensure understanding. Listening helps learners recognize this supportive communication style. Clear speaking also involves tone. A calm tone helps listeners feel comfortable. Listening to soft English narration demonstrates how tone affects communication. In spoken English, speakers often simplify grammar. This natural simplification helps communication flow. Listening helps learners accept this reality. English speaking improves when learners hear real examples. Listening provides exposure to natural sentence construction. Clear speech helps avoid misunderstandings. Listening helps learners recognize how clarity is achieved in real conversations. Speaking English naturally involves rhythm. Words are spoken in a smooth flow. Listening helps learners adjust to this rhythm. In many situations, speakers use polite and neutral language. Listening helps learners recognize these social patterns. Clear communication often uses familiar words. Listening helps learners build confidence with these words. Speaking English does not require advanced expressions. Simple language often communicates ideas more effectively. Listening supports this understanding. In conversations, speakers often give examples to explain ideas. Listening helps learners understand how examples support clarity. Clear English avoids long explanations. Short statements help listeners stay focused. Listening reveals this practical approach.
Speaking becomes smoother with familiarity. Listening builds this familiarity gradually. English speakers often adjust their speech based on the listener. Listening helps learners understand this adaptability. Clear speaking includes appropriate pauses between ideas. Listening helps learners notice how these pauses work. In daily English, people express opinions simply. Listening helps learners understand this style. Clear speaking supports confidence. Listening helps learners feel comfortable with spoken English. English conversations rely on shared understanding. Listening helps learners recognize common conversational patterns. Clear speech uses simple verbs and direct expressions. Listening supports recognition of these choices. Speaking English becomes easier when learners hear consistent examples. Listening provides these examples naturally. In spoken English, speakers often repeat key ideas using different words. Listening helps learners understand emphasis without confusion. Clear speaking helps conversations move smoothly. Listening reveals how speakers guide conversations. English communication values clarity over complexity. Listening reinforces this principle. Speaking naturally involves adjusting tone and speed. Listening helps learners understand these adjustments. Clear speech reduces stress for both speaker and listener. Listening helps learners appreciate this benefit. In daily life, English speakers use predictable sentence structures. Listening helps learners absorb these structures. Speaking English becomes more comfortable with exposure. Listening supports this comfort. Clear communication builds trust. Listening helps learners recognize how clarity supports connection. English speaking improves through observation and exposure. Listening plays a key role in this process. Clear speech avoids unnecessary complexity. Listening helps learners recognize effective communication. Speaking English naturally involves choosing simple words. Listening reinforces this habit. Clear communication supports understanding in every situation. Listening helps learners see this clearly. English speaking develops gradually. Listening supports steady improvement. Clear speech makes ideas accessible. Listening builds this understanding. Speaking English becomes easier through familiarity. Listening creates this familiarity. Clear communication supports confidence. Listening helps learners feel comfortable with spoken English. English conversations rely on shared understanding. Listening helps learners recognize common conversational patterns. Clear speech uses simple verbs and direct expressions. Listening supports recognition of these choices. Speaking English becomes easier when learners hear consistent examples. Listening provides these examples naturally. In spoken English, speakers often repeat key ideas using different words. Listening helps learners understand emphasis without confusion. Clear speaking helps conversations move smoothly. Listening reveals how speakers guide conversations. English communication values clarity over complexity. Listening reinforces this principle. Speaking naturally involves adjusting tone and speed. Listening helps learners understand these adjustments. Clear speech reduces stress for both speaker and listener. Listening helps learners appreciate this benefit. In daily life, English speakers use predictable sentence structures. Listening helps learners absorb these structures. Speaking English becomes more comfortable with exposure. Listening supports this comfort. Clear communication builds trust. Listening helps learners recognize how clarity supports connection. English speaking improves through observation and exposure. Listening plays a key role in this process. Clear speech avoids unnecessary complexity. Listening helps learners recognize effective communication. Speaking English naturally involves choosing simple words. Listening reinforces this habit. Clear communication supports understanding in every situation. Listening helps learners see this clearly. English speaking develops gradually. Listening supports steady improvement. Clear speech makes ideas accessible. Listening builds this understanding. Speaking English becomes easier through familiarity. Listening creates this familiarity. Clear communication supports confidence. Listening helps learners feel comfortable with spoken English. English conversations rely on shared understanding. Listening helps learners recognize common conversational patterns. Clear speech uses simple verbs and direct expressions. Listening supports recognition of these choices. Speaking English becomes easier when learners hear consistent examples. Listening provides these examples naturally. In spoken English, speakers often repeat key ideas using different words. Listening helps learners understand emphasis without confusion. Clear speaking helps conversations move smoothly. Listening reveals how speakers guide conversations. English communication values clarity.
English is most useful when it helps people manage everyday situations. In daily life, communication is practical and purpose-based. People use English to share information, complete tasks, and connect with others. Listening to daily life English helps learners understand how the language works outside textbooks. In homes, English is often used to describe routines, plans, and simple actions. People talk about time, activities, and needs using clear and direct language. Listening helps learners become familiar with this practical vocabulary. In work environments, English is usually polite and straightforward. People focus on clarity to avoid confusion. Instructions, updates, and explanations are shared using simple sentences. Listening reveals how professional English stays calm and clear. At offices, speakers often explain tasks step by step. They describe what needs to be done and when it should happen. Listening helps learners understand this structured communication style. In shops and public places, English is used briefly and efficiently. People ask for items, confirm details, and express preferences using simple language. Listening helps learners recognize these common patterns. Travel situations involve English that is direct and informative. People talk about directions, schedules, and locations. Listening helps learners understand how English supports movement and planning. In social settings, English is friendly and relaxed. People share thoughts, experiences, and opinions using everyday language. Listening helps learners become comfortable with casual English. English conversations often include polite expressions. These expressions help maintain respect and smooth interaction. Listening helps learners recognize polite language naturally. In daily life, English speakers often explain things clearly to avoid misunderstanding. Listening helps learners understand how clarity supports communication. Workplace English focuses on cooperation. People explain ideas, share progress, and confirm understanding. Listening helps learners recognize collaborative language. In customer service situations, English is calm and helpful. Speakers focus on solving problems and providing information. Listening helps learners understand service-based communication. English is often used to describe actions happening now, plans for later, or events from the past. Listening helps learners become familiar with these time-based expressions. In daily conversations, speakers choose words that match the situation. Formal settings use polite language, while informal settings allow relaxed expressions. Listening helps learners recognize these differences. English used in emails and messages often sounds clear and organized. Listening to spoken explanations helps learners understand how ideas are structured. In public announcements, English is usually slow and clear. Information is shared carefully to ensure understanding. Listening helps learners recognize this style. At workplaces, people often summarize information to save time. Listening helps learners understand how key points are communicated. In daily interactions, English speakers often clarify meaning by adding simple details. Listening helps learners understand how explanation works. English conversations often rely on shared context. Listening helps learners recognize meaning beyond words. In meetings, English speakers usually speak calmly and clearly. They focus on sharing ideas rather than impressing others. Listening helps learners understand this practical approach. In everyday English, people often describe problems and solutions simply. Listening helps learners recognize how issues are communicated. English used in learning environments is clear and instructional. Listening helps learners understand how explanations are delivered. In social conversations, English speakers often express agreement or disagreement politely. Listening helps learners recognize these expressions. Daily English includes expressions related to time, such as schedules and deadlines. Listening helps learners become familiar with these terms. In travel and public transport, English focuses on clarity and direction. Listening helps learners understand how instructions are given. English speakers often adjust their language when speaking to non-native speakers. Listening helps learners understand simplified communication. In everyday life, English is often used to describe feelings and reactions simply. Listening helps learners recognize emotional language. At work, English speakers often confirm information to avoid mistakes. Listening helps learners understand this habit. English conversations usually follow a natural flow. Listening helps learners become familiar with this rhythm. In daily English, speakers often explain processes step by step. Listening helps learners understand how explanations are structured. In social situations, English speakers often share short stories. Listening helps learners understand narrative flow. English used in customer interactions focuses on clarity and politeness. Listening helps learners recognize service language. In daily routines, English is used to talk about habits and plans. Listening helps learners become comfortable with this vocabulary. English speakers often use simple connectors to link ideas. Listening helps learners understand how thoughts are connected. In work communication, English speakers avoid unnecessary complexity. Listening helps learners understand efficiency in language. English used in public places often focuses on safety and information. Listening helps learners recognize these priorities. In everyday conversations, speakers often summarize their points. Listening helps learners understand how summarization works. English is often used to explain rules and guidelines. Listening helps learners understand instructional language. In daily life, English speakers often give reasons for decisions. Listening helps learners recognize this explanatory style. English communication values clarity and respect. Listening helps learners understand this balance. In workplaces, English speakers often update others on progress. Listening helps learners understand reporting language. In social English, speakers often keep language light and friendly. Listening helps learners become comfortable with informal tone. English used in services focuses on helping and guiding. Listening helps learners recognize supportive language. In daily communication, English speakers often describe choices and options. Listening helps learners understand decision-related language. English conversations often include simple confirmations. Listening helps learners recognize agreement and understanding. In everyday English, people focus on being understood. Listening helps learners see that clarity matters more than complexity. English in daily life supports connection and cooperation. Listening helps learners recognize this purpose. Over time, exposure to daily life English builds familiarity. Listening helps learners feel comfortable in common situations. English becomes easier when learners understand how it is used practically. Listening supports this understanding. Daily life English focuses on usefulness and clarity. Listening helps learners absorb this naturally. Comfort with English grows through regular exposure to real situations. Listening supports steady progress. English learning becomes meaningful when connected to daily use. Listening helps learners build this connection.
English sounds natural when speech flows smoothly from one idea to the next. In real conversations, people do not speak in isolated words. They connect thoughts using rhythm, pauses, and natural phrasing. Listening helps learners understand how English moves as a continuous stream rather than separate sentences. Natural English speech relies on rhythm. Some words are spoken more strongly, while others are softer. This rhythm guides the listener toward meaning. Regular listening allows the ear to adjust to this pattern without effort. In spoken English, speakers often connect ideas smoothly. Thoughts are arranged in a logical order that feels natural. Listening helps learners recognize how one idea leads to another. Pauses play an important role in natural speech. Speakers pause to separate ideas, add emphasis, or allow the listener time to process information. Listening calmly helps learners understand how pauses shape meaning. English flow becomes clearer when learners notice how sentences end and begin. Speakers often signal transitions using tone rather than words. Listening helps learners sense these changes naturally. Natural speech often includes linking sounds between words. These links make English sound smooth. Listening helps learners become familiar with this connected style. English speakers adjust their speed depending on the situation. Important points may be spoken slowly, while familiar information flows faster. Listening helps learners understand this variation. Flow improves when speakers use simple sentence structures. Listening reveals how simplicity supports clarity in natural speech. In daily conversations, speakers often group words together into meaningful units. Listening helps learners recognize these groups and follow meaning easily. English speech includes natural rises and falls in tone. This melody helps listeners understand intention and emotion. Listening helps learners become familiar with this pattern. When speakers explain ideas, they often move from general information to specific details. Listening helps learners understand this progression. Natural English avoids unnecessary complexity. Speakers choose words that fit the moment. Listening helps learners recognize this practical approach. Flow is also supported by connectors that link ideas smoothly. Listening helps learners understand how these connectors guide conversation. English speech often includes brief pauses before important points. Listening helps learners recognize emphasis without needing explanation. Natural flow allows ideas to feel complete. Listening helps learners notice how speakers close thoughts before moving on. English rhythm becomes familiar through exposure. Listening repeatedly allows the brain to absorb this rhythm naturally. In relaxed conversations, English speech sounds fluid and unforced. Listening helps learners recognize this relaxed style. Natural speech often adjusts based on the listener. Speakers slow down or clarify when needed. Listening helps learners understand this adaptability. Flow improves when speakers avoid overthinking grammar. Listening helps learners see how communication stays natural when focused on meaning. English speech often uses familiar patterns that repeat across situations. Listening helps learners recognize these patterns without repetition in the script. Flow supports understanding even when words are unfamiliar. Listening helps learners rely on context and rhythm. In spoken English, speakers often combine short sentences into a smooth sequence. Listening helps learners understand how ideas connect. Flow becomes easier when learners stop translating in their minds. Listening supports direct understanding. English speech feels natural when ideas are shared calmly. Listening helps learners absorb this calm communication style. Natural flow includes changes in pace. Listening helps learners notice when speech slows or speeds up. English speakers often emphasize key words to guide listeners. Listening helps learners recognize these signals. Flow supports clarity by keeping ideas organized. Listening reveals how organization appears in speech. Natural speech often uses simple phrases to transition between ideas. Listening helps learners recognize these transitions. English rhythm creates comfort for listeners. Listening regularly helps learners feel at ease with spoken English. Flow improves with familiarity. Listening builds this familiarity over time. English speech often reflects thought patterns. Listening helps learners understand how ideas are formed and expressed. Flow allows speech to feel smooth rather than rushed. Listening supports this understanding. English speakers often adjust tone to match meaning. Listening helps learners sense these changes naturally. Flow allows conversations to move forward easily. Listening helps learners understand how continuity is maintained. English speech sounds natural when pauses are used effectively. Listening helps learners recognize how silence supports meaning. Flow supports engagement. Listening helps learners stay connected to spoken English. Natural English includes variation in sentence length. Listening helps learners notice this balance. English rhythm becomes recognizable through exposure. Listening supports this recognition. Flow allows ideas to feel connected. Listening helps learners understand this connection. English speech often uses patterns that feel familiar. Listening helps learners absorb these patterns. Natural flow supports comprehension even during long speech. Listening helps learners stay comfortable. English becomes easier to follow when flow feels predictable. Listening builds this predictability. Flow allows meaning to appear naturally. Listening supports effortless understanding. English speech feels smoother when ideas are clearly linked. Listening helps learners notice this clarity. Natural flow develops through experience. Listening provides this experience. English rhythm supports understanding. Listening helps learners adapt to this rhythm. Flow helps listeners stay relaxed. Listening encourages calm engagement. English speech often reflects natural thinking. Listening helps learners understand this process. Flow supports confidence in communication. Listening helps learners feel comfortable with communication. English becomes familiar through steady exposure. Listening builds this familiarity. Natural flow makes English feel approachable. Listening supports this feeling. Flow allows communication to feel easy. Listening reinforces this ease. English speech develops naturally through listening. Listening supports continuous learning. Flow keeps ideas moving smoothly. Listening helps learners follow along. English rhythm feels natural with exposure. Listening supports this adaptation. Flow improves understanding quietly. Listening supports this improvement. English speech becomes comfortable over time. Listening helps learners reach this comfort. Flow allows English to sound natural. Listening reinforces this sound. English communication feels smoother with familiarity. Listening builds this familiarity. Flow supports clarity and calm. Listening helps learners appreciate this balance. English speech feels less effortful through exposure. Listening supports ease. Flow allows meaning to settle naturally. Listening supports understanding. English rhythm becomes part of listening experience. Listening helps learners absorb it. Flow makes English accessible. Listening supports learning. English speech becomes natural with practice. Listening provides this practice. Flow helps English feel continuous. Listening supports this continuity. English understanding grows steadily. Listening supports growth. Flow supports natural comprehension. Listening helps learners adapt. English speech becomes smooth. Listening continues the process.
Confidence in English develops through familiarity rather than force. When the language becomes familiar, hesitation reduces naturally. This familiarity grows from regular exposure to sounds, words, and sentence patterns. Listening allows the brain to recognize English as something known rather than something foreign. Familiarity creates comfort. Comfort allows the mind to stay relaxed while processing language. When English feels familiar, understanding happens without tension. This relaxed understanding supports confidence quietly. English confidence does not require perfection. In real communication, people focus on sharing ideas clearly. Familiar language helps speakers express thoughts without fear of mistakes. Listening helps learners see how communication works naturally. When English sounds become familiar, the brain processes them faster. This speed reduces hesitation. Listening regularly builds this familiarity over time. Confidence grows when learners recognize patterns they have heard before. Familiar sentence structures feel safe and predictable. Listening helps these patterns settle naturally in memory. Exposure plays a major role in building confidence. The more English is heard, the more normal it feels. Familiar sounds no longer cause stress. Listening supports this normalization. Confidence often appears quietly. It shows as calm understanding and smooth response. Listening helps learners reach this state without effort. English familiarity reduces the need to translate. When words sound familiar, meaning appears naturally. Listening supports direct understanding. Confidence is supported by predictability. Familiar phrases and structures make English easier to follow. Listening builds this predictability. In daily life, English speakers rely on familiar expressions. Listening helps learners recognize these expressions and feel comfortable with them. Confidence improves when learners feel at ease with the language. Familiarity creates this ease. Listening provides steady exposure. English confidence grows when learners stop focusing on mistakes. Familiar language shifts attention toward meaning. Listening supports this shift. The brain trusts what it recognizes. Familiar sounds feel safe. Listening helps build this trust with English. Confidence does not require effortful practice. Familiarity develops naturally through exposure. Listening supports this natural development. English becomes less intimidating when it feels familiar. Listening reduces fear by creating familiarity. Confidence supports clear communication. Familiar language allows ideas to flow smoothly. Listening builds this familiarity. English confidence grows when learners feel comfortable hearing the language. Listening provides repeated comfort. Familiarity helps learners stay calm during communication. Calmness supports understanding and expression. Listening encourages this calm state. Confidence develops when English no longer feels new. Familiar sounds feel manageable. Listening helps reach this stage. English exposure creates mental readiness. Familiar language prepares the brain to respond naturally. Listening builds this readiness. Confidence appears when learners recognize words and structures easily. Listening supports recognition. Familiar language reduces mental effort. Less effort allows smoother communication. Listening helps reduce this effort. English becomes part of daily experience through familiarity. Listening integrates the language into routine. Confidence grows when learners feel connected to the language. Familiarity creates this connection. Listening supports connection. English confidence often shows as steady speech and calm tone. Familiar language supports this steadiness. Listening reinforces it. Familiarity allows learners to focus on meaning rather than form. Listening supports meaning-based understanding.
Confidence increases when learners feel comfortable with common expressions. Listening builds comfort. English familiarity allows quicker responses. Listening supports faster recognition. Confidence is strengthened when learners recognize language patterns instinctively. Listening builds instinctive recognition. Familiarity reduces anxiety. Reduced anxiety supports confidence. Listening creates familiarity. English becomes easier when the brain expects certain patterns. Listening builds expectation. Confidence grows through repeated exposure. Listening provides consistent exposure. Familiar sounds allow learners to stay present in communication. Listening supports presence. English confidence does not appear suddenly. It grows gradually through familiarity. Listening supports gradual growth. Familiar language allows learners to engage without fear. Listening supports engagement. Confidence becomes stable when familiarity is strong. Listening strengthens familiarity. English familiarity allows learners to trust their understanding. Listening builds this trust. Confidence improves when English feels predictable. Listening supports predictability. Familiar language helps learners focus on ideas rather than language mechanics. Listening supports idea-focused understanding. English confidence is supported by calm exposure. Listening provides calm exposure. Familiar language supports smooth comprehension. Listening improves smoothness. Confidence grows when learners stop overthinking. Familiarity reduces overthinking. Listening supports this reduction. English becomes accessible when familiarity increases. Listening supports accessibility. Confidence allows communication to feel natural. Familiar language supports natural expression. Listening reinforces this feeling. Familiarity reduces mental resistance. Listening helps remove resistance. English confidence grows as language becomes routine. Listening helps make English routine. Familiar sounds help learners relax during communication. Listening supports relaxation. Confidence improves when learners recognize language automatically. Listening supports automatic recognition. English familiarity supports steady progress. Listening encourages steady exposure. Confidence is built through consistency. Listening provides consistent language contact. Familiarity allows learners to stay calm in different situations. Listening supports adaptability. English confidence grows when learners feel safe with the language. Familiarity creates this safety. Listening supports safety. Familiar language supports clear thinking. Listening improves clarity. Confidence allows learners to communicate without fear. Listening builds confidence gradually. English familiarity strengthens understanding. Listening supports understanding. Confidence grows when learners feel at home with the language. Familiarity creates this feeling. Listening supports belonging. English confidence develops naturally through exposure. Listening supports natural development. Familiarity helps learners accept imperfection. Listening shows how real communication works. Confidence becomes stable when English feels normal. Listening helps English feel normal. English familiarity allows learners to stay relaxed. Listening supports relaxation. Confidence improves as familiarity deepens. Listening deepens familiarity. English confidence becomes part of everyday experience. Listening supports integration. Familiarity builds comfort. Comfort builds confidence. Listening supports both. English becomes approachable through familiarity. Listening supports approachability. Confidence grows quietly with exposure. Listening supports quiet growth. English familiarity supports long-term learning. Listening builds long-term comfort. Confidence develops when learners feel connected to language patterns. Listening builds connection. English confidence feels natural when familiarity is strong. Listening strengthens familiarity. Confidence supports communication flow. Familiarity supports flow. Listening reinforces both. English confidence grows steadily through listening. Listening supports confidence.
English learning becomes stable when the language feels familiar and calm. Familiar sounds, words, and sentence patterns create a sense of ease. This ease supports understanding without effort. Over time, English becomes part of the listening environment rather than a separate task. Listening allows the mind to revisit ideas gently. Familiar concepts return in new forms, helping understanding deepen naturally. This gentle review supports memory without pressure. English comprehension improves when ideas feel connected. Listening helps the brain recognize how sounds, words, and meaning work together. This connection strengthens understanding quietly. When English feels familiar, the mind stays relaxed. Relaxation allows learning to continue even during rest. Calm listening supports this relaxed learning state. Understanding grows through exposure rather than effort. Listening creates repeated contact with language patterns. This contact builds familiarity and comfort. English learning becomes easier when the mind recognizes patterns. Familiar sentence structures and sounds reduce mental effort. Listening supports this recognition naturally. A calm listening experience allows ideas to settle. The brain organizes information quietly while staying relaxed. This gentle process supports long-term understanding. English does not need active focus to be absorbed. Passive listening allows the mind to stay open while resting. This openness supports natural learning. Familiar language creates stability. Stability helps understanding feel secure. Listening builds this stable foundation over time. English comprehension improves when the language feels predictable. Familiar patterns help the brain anticipate meaning. Listening supports this predictability. Exposure allows English to feel less foreign. Familiar sounds become normal. Listening helps create this sense of normality. The mind absorbs language best when it feels safe. Calm listening provides this safe environment. Learning continues without resistance. English understanding develops gradually. Each listening session adds familiarity. This gradual growth feels natural and comfortable. Listening supports reflection without effort. Ideas return gently, allowing understanding to deepen quietly. English becomes easier when the mind stops trying to control learning. Listening allows learning to happen naturally. Familiar sounds create comfort. Comfort supports calm understanding. Listening builds this comfort steadily. English comprehension benefits from repetition across time, not within a single moment. Listening over multiple sessions supports this process. The mind organizes language patterns quietly. Listening provides the input needed for this organization. English learning becomes sustainable when it feels gentle. Listening supports gentle exposure without stress. Familiar language allows understanding to appear naturally. Listening supports this appearance. English becomes part of the background when familiarity grows. This background presence supports long-term learning. The brain continues processing language during rest. Listening allows learning to continue quietly. English comprehension improves through calm exposure. Listening provides this exposure consistently. Familiar patterns reduce confusion. Listening helps learners recognize these patterns naturally. Understanding deepens when ideas feel connected. Listening supports connection. English learning does not require urgency. Listening allows progress to happen at a natural pace. Familiarity supports calm engagement. Listening helps maintain this calm state. English comprehension improves when the mind stays relaxed. Listening supports relaxation. Language understanding becomes intuitive through exposure. Listening supports intuition.
English becomes accessible when familiarity replaces fear. Listening supports this transition. Understanding grows quietly. Listening allows this quiet growth. English comprehension stabilizes through repeated exposure. Listening supports stability. Familiar language supports mental ease. Listening builds ease. English learning becomes part of daily rhythm. Listening integrates language into routine. Understanding improves when the mind feels comfortable. Listening supports comfort. English familiarity allows meaning to appear naturally. Listening supports meaning recognition. Calm listening supports steady progress. English learning continues without interruption. Familiar sounds help the brain stay relaxed. Listening supports relaxation. English comprehension improves when the mind recognizes language patterns. Listening supports recognition. Understanding becomes smoother as familiarity increases. Listening supports smooth comprehension. English learning feels natural when pressure is removed. Listening removes pressure. Familiarity supports clarity. Listening builds clarity. English comprehension continues during rest. Listening supports passive learning. Language comprehension grows through steady exposure. Listening provides steady input. English familiarity creates confidence quietly. Listening supports quiet confidence. Understanding improves when English feels normal. Listening helps normalize language. The mind absorbs language when it feels calm. Listening supports calm absorption. English learning becomes effortless over time. Listening supports this effortlessness. Familiar language allows ideas to settle gently. Listening supports gentle settling. English comprehension develops through consistent exposure. Listening provides consistency. Understanding becomes stable when familiarity is strong. Listening strengthens familiarity. English learning continues naturally. Listening supports natural continuation. The mind remains open during calm listening. Learning continues quietly. English comprehension benefits from gentle repetition across sessions. Listening supports long-term learning. Familiarity supports ease. Listening builds ease. Understanding grows as language feels familiar. Listening supports familiarity. English learning feels integrated. Listening supports integration. Comprehension improves without effort. Listening supports effortless learning. English becomes part of the listening environment. Listening supports immersion. Familiar language supports calm awareness. Listening builds awareness. Understanding settles naturally. Listening supports settling. English comprehension continues quietly. Listening supports quiet progress. Learning feels steady and calm. Listening supports steadiness. English familiarity supports long-term comfort. Listening builds comfort. Understanding develops through exposure. Listening provides exposure. English learning becomes gentle. Listening supports gentleness. Familiar sounds support ease. Listening builds ease. Understanding becomes natural. Listening supports natural comprehension. English learning continues quietly and steadily. Listening supports continuation.